to this week's Movie Math, a sobering episode of Movie Math, where Captain America Brave New World, to me, is starting to have shades of Batman v Superman. That's right, shades, but I do think it's a similar situation. You know, Marvel seems to be the last to fall. First it was Star Wars, then it was DC. People thought Marvel might never fall, but it's not looking good. It's like the fall of Rome. So it's dividing the fandom. Some are arguing it's a solid, fun movie, and I'm on the same side both times. I'm a comic book fan, and I'm an optimist. I have some theories on this. All right, so anyway, we're going to have a discussion. So some are arguing it's a solid, fun movie, and certain groups are out to get the MCU, and there are conspiracy theories, while other sides are like, stick a fork in the MCU, it's done. And the other side is like, and the other side is like, and that's basically what we're doing. For me, what really solidified it was the case of deja vu I had on Saturday morning. You see, back in the day, I'll never forget, filled with excitement like a little kid, I ran up to my parents after we had both seen Batman v Superman, and I was like, let's talk about how good that movie was. And I'll never forget the look on their face as I got closer to them, and it looked bad. And sure enough, they hated the movie. It threw me for a loop. And what do you know? When I called them on Saturday morning to ask them how they liked Captain America Brave New World as their Valentine's Day date movie, sadly, a movie that I had told them, well, my dad wanted to see it. I felt very bad. It really is like Batman v Superman, where both sides just can't understand how the other one has the feeling that they do. But they hated it. Even my dad hated it. Uh-oh. So do I think Captain America Brave New World is a medium movie? Yes, I think it's medium. You know, Batman v Superman, many of us felt it was a work of art. You know, we felt, it was cinema. You know, I think many of us who liked the film with Captain America will admit, yeah, it's a fun popcorn movie, right? But I do also agree that people, in my opinion, are being overly harsh on it. But it doesn't matter. I mean, they are. I mean, it might not be fair. I mean, but when is life fair? I mean, that's the situation that we find ourselves in. But I want to make a point here. Hollywood has been making mid-movies for decades, and many of them have been huge successes. In fact, you can't put a movie in theaters every single weekend, sometimes 2 to 3 movies a weekend. That was the day. Back in the day, before streaming and stuff like that, and etc., there would often be 2 to 3 releases a weekend. It was beautiful. But not every single one of them could be cinema. And it was fine. It was better than fine. It was great. And it created many, many movie fans. And I'm not sure if there will be as many movie fans going forward, because a big part of being a movie fan is loving just going to the movies. So streaming, though, unfortunately gives audiences more choices. Streaming has finally done what Hollywood was worried TV would do. But TV was such a different storytelling method, and it just had such a different feel to it, whereas streaming is basically 6 to 8 hour to sometimes 10-hour movies. Streaming has more time to tell a story, so therefore it can be more intricate, and that raises the bar for what audiences expect. It's a much lower price point, and it's far more convenient. And also, some people are saying now that they won't go to the theater unless it's for an A+ experience. But guess what? For decades, you did. In fact, people went to the movies for just a medium experience for the entire time the movie industry has existed up until now. So this is a huge change. It's very hard. I mean, you might think, just look at the perception of some of these movies. It's a real problem for Hollywood. Then, I think comic book movie fatigue is real. Not for like you and me. I'm talking about for normies, for casuals, for regular folk who don't read comic books, don't watch the animation. They're not into it, but they kind of got into it with these movies. I think they're done. I think it's too much. I think if they had 1 or 2 comic book movies a year, this wouldn't be so bad. My parents loved Deadpool and Wolverine. That was just one Marvel movie last year. I think that would be okay, but they just want something different. I mean, it's just too much. That's something my parents did say. They're like, we can't take any more superhero stuff. And I was like, what? I read superhero stories every single week. And again, we've talked about the top and the middle and the bottom of the stack. We have that nuance, but normies don't. They're like, either they liked it or they didn't. And I think this doesn't bode well for all the comic book movies that are coming out this year. There are a lot of comic book movies coming out this year. Maybe it's too many. In fact, here's another scary story, and I'd love to hear your own anecdotes down below. I was over at my parents' house after they'd seen the movie, And I said, hey, do you want to see the cool new Fantastic Four IMAX intro that somebody uploaded online? It's amazing. I was like, that's great. But my mom didn't even want to see it. She was like, no thanks. In fact, she went even further. She said, do you mean to tell me there's going to be a superhero intro for all IMAX movies until late July? Because she doesn't want that superhero stuff in front of her other. My parents are big cinephiles. They made me a movie fan. So, I mean, who do you think took me to the movies every weekend growing up? But they're like, I don't want to. And I was like, maybe it's just for Captain America: Brave New World. But like when you go and see other IMAX movies like Mickey 17 and they have the Fantastic Four IMAX intro, will you be like, yes, awesome? Or you be like, give me a break? I'm curious. I mean, it is a very long time to play that. Maybe they should just bring it out for comic book movies, like Thunderbolts, Superman, etc. I mean, at first I was like, oh, it's so great. I mean, it's very Incredibles. And by the way, some of you were like, Incredibles ripped off Fantastic Four. Doesn't matter with normies. Normies don't care who got there first. John Carter's the OG. And that was actually a good movie. Nobody cared. It was there too late. All right. That intro is so Incredibles. It's a little bit like, whoa. All right. But I bet you my parents would be interested in the Incredibles 3 because they just love the Incredibles so much. Although, if they don't get a break, who knows? All right, so let's talk numbers. Because it's a holiday weekend, meaning a 4-day weekend, Disney Marvel is able to put $100 million out there in the headlines. But it's actually 88.5 for the 3-day. Outside of the MCU pandemic openings and the epic disaster that was the Marvels, talk about sobering. That one was a punch in the face. Pessimistically, this is an Ant-Man level opening, and optimistically, it's a Doctor Strange level opening. But the opening number is just part of the bigger picture, and the real problem here is the CinemaScore. Oh, Ant-Man's were higher. Ant-Man's! CinemaScore is the industry standard for predicting the longevity of a movie in theaters, and it's the industry standard because it's almost always correct. Anything lower than a B+ for a non-horror movie, horror typically is in the C range, just because, horror is an acquired taste, although that seems to be changing. But if you have anything lower than a B+, your movie's in trouble. B- is the lowest CinemaScore in the history of the MCU. It's lower than the DC movies, by the way. And the only lower CinemaScores for recent comic book movies, just to give you some perspective, come from Sony. This is like getting into Sony territory. Now, again, many feel the CinemaScore is unfair, myself included. I think it is not fair. But even if it doesn't represent the actual quality of the film itself, you can't argue with the fact that it does represent how audiences feel about it, particularly with CinemaScore. CinemaScore cannot be gamed. It's not people just volunteering to put their thoughts in there. It's spot polling at theaters. It's done with a little paper card so that anybody can participate. You don't even have to be tech savvy. And that's why it's so good at what it does. And so the fact that it got a B- is just, it's enough. It should send shivers down the spine of every Disney Marvel executive. This is a disaster. Part of me has been hoping that Captain America: Brave New World could pull a Mufasa, where it's week out of the gate, but it plays the long game, especially because there are no big movies, as we've been discussing, for a month with Snow White. But Hollywood has a real problem, because look at this. Snow White already caught in a hate storm, and Mickey 17 just hit Rotten Tomatoes, and out of the gate, they're weak. Out of the gate, it's a big fancy, I think, Berlin debut with hand-picked critics. It should be better than that. But Mufasa got an A- CinemaScore. So the fact that B- makes it unlikely that Captain America: Brave New World can follow in its footsteps. It's likely now that it will drop like a rock. Quantumania, which again had a better CinemaScore, fell 70% in its second weekend. But wait, there's more. It gets worse. Just like there wasn't a strong turnout for women with the Marvels, there isn't a strong turnout for Black audiences with Captain America: Brave New World. This is mind-blowing to me. With Black Panther, Black audiences were the top demographic. Here, third. Now, this is a stronger percentage than usual, but once again, the demographic that Disney supposedly made the movie for in part, obviously these are supposed to be broad appeal films, but that demographic did not show up. What the heck? And like most comic book movies, including the Marvels, Captain America: Brave New World skewed male. Surely it didn't help that there were no major female characters here, but back in the day, it can be done. So Black Widow was 42% female, Captain Marvel 45% female, and get this, the original Wonder Woman, 55% female. They managed to tip to flip it and have the majority of the audience be women. That's incredible. A real shame that DC let that fall apart. Patty Jenkins! Why? Why did you trust Jeff Johns? We were screaming at you that he's no good. Can James Gunn recapture that female appeal with his Supergirl? Maybe. But that's, it's really a shame that fell apart. All right, speaking of hate storms, Captain America Brave New World is caught up in one itself. That's like that thing from Pirates of the Caribbean. You're living in one. So let's go through all these angles of hate. There's the current anti-DEI crowd feeling empowered by Trump's second term. Some people are upset with Marvel, with fans these days from multiple franchises feeling the only way they can make their voices heard is with boycotts. Don't go to the theater, don't click on the streaming show. One has to wonder, has Disney done to Marvel what they did to Star Wars? It's a horrifying thought. I will say that unlike any other Marvel movie, there was just a lack of interest. I've never seen it before. Usually people, good or bad, at least want to talk about it. People didn't even have that much interest in talking about this movie. That is amazing. Then there are those who are upset with Disney itself as the studio continues to find itself caught in political discourse, especially because both groups claim ownership of the studio. And this is fascinating to me. Conservatives hold on to what Walt built, while liberals, rightfully so, are proud of the largely liberal cast members and talent that have made the company what it is today. In fact, if you're being honest about it, liberal creatives were a big part of even Walt's success. They just were forced to be closeted because of the time they were living in. I mean, there are not a lot of conservative artists. I mean, let's be honest here. And so I wish that we could just share Disney. All right, so then worldwide, people are upset with America. Canada keeps booing us at sporting events, but we won. But still, it's not good. We don't want to fight with Canada. How are we fighting with Canada? Captain America Brave New World, just like Snow White, finds itself part of the Israel-Palestine debate, with protesters even at the premiere for Captain America Brave New World. And then a lot of people are just upset with Hollywood. I asked you on Twitter, what would make you less angry with Hollywood if you were angry? And I was surprised at the wide range of answers from across the political spectrum. Seems not anybody's happy with Hollywood. They aren't making anyone happy. And that's really something they should take seriously. So trades are saying that Captain America Brave New World only needs $425 to break even. Because remember, the rule of thumb is that studios only get about 50% once you factor in the point that they get only a small percentage of worldwide box office, and they have to also share it. In North America, they have to share the revenue with the theaters. And overseas, they have to share the revenue not just with theaters, but also with the overseas distributor if they're partnering with somebody. So it works out to about 50%. Let's just say that number's true, right? Like, this is bad enough. We don't have to fight over this stuff. So Disney doesn't make Marvel movies to just break even. The Marvels, Eternals, Shang-Chi, even Black Widow, no second movies with similar box office. Yelena's coming back, but in a repurposed kind of story with Thunderbolts, and we'll see how it does at the box office. They did keep making Ant-Man movies, though. Nobody knows why. But this is Captain America. Doctor Strange got to 676, and I still feel that, I'll say that it could get to high 600s. I mean, to be honest with you, I think it has to have a 7 in front of its worldwide number for this to move forward. I think if it has a 6 in front of it, it's not embarrassing. I mean, like if it's high 6s, like Mufasa or Doctor Strange, then okay. Let's just make some changes and keep going. But anything less than that, and it's bad. And it's not looking like it's going to get more than that. Quantumania, which opened bigger and had a better CinemaScore, only got to 463 worldwide. And you might be like, well, hey, Captain America is already at 192 worldwide. Well, guess what? Quantumania was at 240 worldwide when it opened. And it couldn't get any higher than 463. Oh my God. I do think that the CinemaScore is what really is damning. And at this point, let's see what the second weekend drop is. I don't see the movie I don't think it'll even have a 5 in front of it. I do think it'll end with a 4 in front of it. So thank goodness it only needs 425 to break even. That's really bad. Now, they're not going to stop making Marvel movies. And the MCU was locked through Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars. Doomsday is just about to start filming. And they're making big, bold swings as they try to save this thing and get it back up on its feet. But maybe Iger tells Feige to stop announcing new movies, unless it's Deadpool and Wolverine 2. Maybe I would announce Deadpool and Wolverine 2. Although Ryan Reynolds is caught in his own drama right now. Maybe saying, the excuse could be they don't want to ruin any of the surprises that will spin out of the Avengers saga, right? They're like, oh, you don't want to know who lives and who dies? Maybe they announce an X-Men movie to kind of get people distracted. I mean, one of you even said you were tired of the Avengers. You need an Avengers break. And that maybe the MCU should shift its focus to Fantastic Four and X-Men. And maybe they will. Or maybe they'll go full Fox. Everyone agrees that Anthony Mackie's Captain America is a swell guy. He really is. But you know what? Does he not have main character energy? That's a difficult discussion to have. That's tough. And again, let's remember, as I've brought up before, that Sam Wilson as Captain America was not well received, even in the comics. I tried to read a couple of them this weekend, actually. Great artwork from Stuart Immonen. And I thought they were actually pretty good. But I think that giving Captain America wings, I got to tell you, I think that's part of the issue. He just doesn't seem like Captain America with the wings. He still seems like Falcon. So what do? Rumor has it Chris Evans will return one last time, although Chris Evans vehemently denies it. Is he pulling an Andrew Garfield? It's good to be surprised, but that's where we are. So, but the optics of replacing Mackie with Evans or a new person, right? I mean, it would be so bad to replace him without giving him a full turn as Cap. But what do they do if audiences aren't interested? Do they Nick Fury him? Where he leads the Avengers but doesn't get any more solo movies? Poor Nick Fury. Look at Secret Invasion. Look what happened there. What would you do? How would you handle this going forward, considering what's happened so far? Sony counter-programmed Captain America Brave New World with the latest Paddington, 7 years after the last one and 10 years after the first. And it did okay. I mean, the opening is better than the last film, but not nearly as good as the first. And the film has already been playing overseas in many countries. It's pretty much playing everywhere. North America is one of the last places to get it. And I don't see it, because of that, even hitting 200 million worldwide, much less matching the first two entries. But Studio Canal is still bullish on the bear. They're insisting they're not only going to make a fourth film, but they're going to do a TV series and a musical stage show. I have a friend who is a super Paddington fan, so that makes me very happy for that reason. However, from a business perspective, I don't see the numbers to support that kind of expansion, especially because Paddington 3's budget is by far and away the biggest of the three. Maybe if they can bring the budgets back down, let's do it. Let's see. Maybe. What would you do? Do you want more Paddington? Do you want that much more Paddington? There is a Hugh Grant cameo at the end of Paddington 3, and it's pretty great. People do love British bears. And in fact, when I just went to London, one of the things that we did was go to Paddington Station and visit the statue they have there of Paddington. And it was awesome. And there was a mini line. Everybody loves Paddington. But maybe he doesn't get a fourth movie, TV show, and musical. All right, as for Valentine's Day movies, Sony's strategy worked. Hard Eyes went up 20% for the holiday weekend, but Universal, not so lucky, as Love Hurts went down 25%, and it wasn't that good to begin with. People did go to the movies for the holiday weekend, though, with 3 movies going up: Hard Eyes, Mufasa, and one of them Days. Dogman and Companion, though, which again came out the same weekend, both continued to drop, and they're going to have to rely on digital and streaming to boost their revenue and audience. And look, Nazon 2 did come to North America, and it did do surprisingly well. Wow! Opening at number 5, despite playing in less than 1,000 theaters. That's very impressive. It's once again, it gives us hope that maybe adult animation can do well in the West. And thanks to streaming services like Netflix popularizing overseas content in North America, non-English language, North American audiences continue to be more open to seeing foreign language content in theaters. That's a big change, huge change. Now let's head over to streaming, starting with Nielsen for mid-January. Cameron Diaz and Jamie Foxx pulled out a number 1 on a very competitive overall chart where 6, their movie and 5 shows, were able to do over 1 billion minutes of viewing for the week. American Primeval, Squid Game Season 2, and Landman are all still doing very well, particularly Landman, because this was the week after it finished its season, and it's still doing so well, which means word of mouth is getting people to go binge it. That's what I did. I didn't watch it when it aired, but the numbers were so strong, I was like, I should watch this, and I loved it. I strongly recommend it as a binge. I watched it, I think, in 3 days. Loved it. No such luck for Skeleton Crew. It wrapped. This was the week that it wrapped. No boost from binging now that all the episodes were available. And that is the last of the 3 no-show holiday series that, despite being parts of major franchises, never made it onto the Nielsen charts. Uh-oh. But look at Severance! Oh, it couldn't make the overall chart, but it's number 4 on the originals chart. That's amazing. It's still not doing Ted Lasso numbers, and a couple of other Apple shows have managed to chart on Nielsen. They're silo below it. But it would seem Severance is Apple's biggest show since Ted Lasso. Maybe the numbers will go up, although I think Severance, I really loved it, but I got to binge the first 6 episodes. I think it might be a little slow for some people. So we'll see how it performs. Are you enjoying Severance season 2? And reality shows also continue to do very well on streaming. The Traitors is number 6, while Beast Games went up a little bit to number 8. Hey, better than Dune Prophecy, Creature Commandos, and Skeleton Crew. That's amazing. However, the show was not a big hit on social media, like it never trended when it aired. But it doesn't necessarily have to. It depends on what Amazon, through Prime Video, was looking to get out of this relationship. And so we'll see if they do continue the partnership with Mr. Beast. Have you watched Beast Games? What do you think of it compared to more traditional content? And you know what? It didn't hurt Squid Game's numbers, but it didn't seem to maybe benefit so much from that. So maybe doing like a knockoff of Squid Game, they didn't need to do that. I think Mr. Beast was the selling point just by himself. So he could maybe have a little more leeway if they were going to continue with him to do something that was more unique to him and maybe a little bit more like his YouTube content. But again, I didn't watch Beast Games. I've seen some Mr. Beast YouTube videos, but did it feel like it was different or just an extension of his YouTube videos? All right, some of you must have watched it. I mean, it did pretty good numbers. Over on Netflix's own charts, starting with movies, Amy Schumer still has a career, it seems, as she posted solid to strong numbers with her new comedy. I mean, it has awful scores, critic and audience, but so do a lot of Netflix direct-to-streaming movies. They know it's on in the background. They just want you to click. And Back in Action is still towards the top in its 4th week on Netflix's charts. With shows, The Night Agent and The Recruit continue to cannibalize each other with their second seasons, and it really makes no sense that Netflix put these out back to back. It's like the same show. Unless you watch either one and you're like, how dare you? Caitlin Dever has a flop with Apple Cider Vinegar, although thankfully she's already set with The Last of Us Part 2. While WWE Raw, the weekly show, moved up a little bit this week. Then on digital with Apple, Sonic is on sale and took back the number 1 spot, while Wicked is still doing incredibly well, as is Anora, which just picked up another win this weekend with the WGA Award for Best Original Screenplay. The BAFTAs are going, original. The BAFTAs are going on right now as we speak, and we'll see how, or maybe they've just finished, depending on when you watch this video, and we'll talk later in the week about how Anora performs there. Interestingly, Sonic and Wicked are keeping Moana 2 at bay. However, I think Disney Plus is a big factor here. A lot of people will wait just a little bit longer to watch it at no extra cost on Disney Plus. While recent theatrical releases, One of Them Days, Flight Risk, and Den of Thieves 2 are all doing pretty good. And how'd Craven get back in there? Well, it's now available to rent. But here's something that's interesting. Usually, if there's a rental option right away, it's pretty close to the purchase price, like with One of Them Days, which just dropped. However, if you have to wait a few weeks, typically the opening rental cost is $6. Not here. Craven is $10. So it makes me wonder, with the shortened theatrical windows, if Hollywood might try to see if they can raise up that rental price, even if it's a little bit later than when it drops for purchase. What would you be willing to pay to rent a movie, if it was less than the $20 to $25 to purchase, so you could get it sooner rather than later? I think you might start to see some experimentation here, especially for movies that need that cash like Craven. As for this coming weekend, Captain America Brave New World will face its first box office hurdle sooner rather than later. We thought it would be Mickey 17, but the monkey might be surprisingly competitive. People are loving horror these days, and this one is supposedly bonkers. It's from Osgood Perkins, Longlegs did very well, coupled with James Wan, who is producing. It's got a pretty solid Rotten Tomatoes score out of the gate, which makes it, as I said, more of a threat than Mickey 17. And somehow, Zachary Levi has returned. Tuesday is huge for digital releases. You've got Mufasa, The Brutalist, The Last Showgirl, and The Seed of the Sacred Fig. While on Friday, Robert De Niro, Morgan Freeman, and Tommy Lee Jones, along with Christoph Waltz, all go right to digital. As for shows, big night tonight. SNL has its 3-hour 50th anniversary special starting at 8 p.m. on NBC, and I hear it's chock full of big stars and surprises, so you might want to tune in. But what are you going to do? Because also tonight is White Lotus Season 3 starting on HBO and Max at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Maybe you can start out with a little SNL, then switch over to White Lotus. I have seen 6 of the 8 episodes. They made 6 available to critics. I think it's the weakest of the 3 seasons to date, and even its positive reviews have agreed with me that it has real pacing and story issues. But it's a social media darling right out of the gate already, before the first episode has even aired, thanks to its strong cast of, it's a medium cast, but it's very good for social media, particularly Blackpink's Lisa driving very strong engagement. She's like the breakout star of this show, and it hasn't even aired yet. Also, the location of the 3 seasons is the best. They always shoot the White Lotus at a 4 seasons, so that's a great relationship that Mike White has with the resort. This one is in Thailand, and it's absolutely mind-blowingly breathtaking. I mean, it's just stunning. So you could actually go to there. You can go to all these hotels, actually. On Wednesday, Pixar's Win or Lose finally hits Disney Plus, starting with 2 episodes. While on Thursday, Netflix drops the entire season of Zero Day, more De Niro, and Prime Video starts season 3 of Reacher the way they always do, 3 episodes up front. I think Prime Video has a good strategy. They hook you with 3 episodes, and then they go to the weekly. Then on Friday, Apple TV brings back Surface, and Hulu, this looks good to me, has 1,000 Blows from Stephen Knight, who also created Peaky Blinders. So I think this could end up maybe being, a sleeper hit. And that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And what's your honest assessment of Captain America's debut now that we've again looked at the full picture? What do you predict the second weekend drop will be? And how high do you think it will get overall worldwide? A 4 in front of it, a 5 in front of it, a 6? Dare we say a 7? What do you predict? Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.